I've got 3 reasons why the Bearcats are going to win on Saturday, and it all starts with controlling the middle of the field.
You are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bearcats. My name is Jeff Carr, and I'm all Cincinnati all the time. I've worked in multiple university athletic departments, and I've been a football season ticket holder for 7 seasons now. I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. Locked On Bearcats is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Bearcats, every single day. And Locked On is now the #1 sports podcast network in the country, and I thank you for helping make that happen. On today's podcast, I have 3 reasons why the Bearcats will beat the Wildcats on Saturday. We'll start with the middle of the field and why the Bearcats will own it on offense. We'll then look at one of the key pieces of the Arizona defense and why Brendan Sorsby will neutralize it. And we'll finish up with looking at the 12th man, Nippert Stadium, and why it's so hard to beat the Bearcats there. Thank you for joining me here today. The Bearcats are heading into a nice little 2-week homestand with Arizona and with BYU. Of course, for player perspective wise, they got to focus week to week, but they got to win all 3 of these games. They cannot lose any of them if they hope to make it to Dallas, because currently they are tied for first place in the conference. And as long as they win out, nobody can beat them. As you know, they will make one of the teams in the Big 12 championship. And the reason that I believe that they will win this week, there's 3 reasons. But the first one begins with the middle of the field and why the Bearcats will control it, because there is a key player that will be missing for Arizona's defense. It is nose tackle Tia Sevea. And I tried my best to find a pronunciation guide for that, and I think I nailed it. Had a hard time doing that. I don't know why. But I believe it's Tia Sevea. But he is one of the key players on their defensive line. They have a couple of really high-performing defensive linemen, but it starts with the guy in the middle. He is a redshirt senior, guy who's been here before. He's played at UCLA. He transferred to Texas for a minute and then transferred back to Arizona. But he's a key member of this defensive line, has 3 tackles for a loss this season, is one of the top guys in that statistic for their defense, but overall just really forces the offensive line on the other side of the ball to pay attention to him. He's one of those guys not quite as good at it as Dante Corleone is. I mean, let's be real. Nobody's as good as Dante Corleone is. But when it comes to like eating up blockers, forcing double teams, and forcing the tackles to go one-on-one with the defensive ends for Arizona, Tia Sevea is really good at that. And so the fact that he is missing is a key to this, because the Bearcats are going to want to control the clock. They're going to want to control time of possession. Tawee Walker is good to go. Scott Satterfield said that in his press conference earlier this week, that he is back to, normal as far as health is concerned after the bye week. And so they're going to want to push things up the middle, make sure that they win the physical side of this game. And missing a redshirt senior nose tackle is going to be so key for that Arizona defense, something that they're going to have to account for, something that they're going to have to game plan around, because they've got other guys, of course, that they can rotate in, including a dude who is 400 pounds. I did see that. They've got a huge dude that they can put there in the middle of that defensive line, but he's a rotational guy for a reason. I don't think that he's going to be a guy that you have to double team and all that other stuff. So I think that they lose that aspect of strength on their defensive line. And then the Bearcats are going to be able to push up the middle, but not only just in the run game. Think about the pass game too, because with that weakness in the middle of the defensive line, they're going to have to bring their linebackers to make sure that they cover the gap in the middle, especially their middle linebacker, who's a really solid player, and their safety. I think their leading tackler is their safety number 43, something that Scott Satterfield had said at his press conference as well. But those guys are going to have to make sure that they are helping out with those gaps in the middle. And so they're going to have their focus a little bit further into the backfield, making sure that that's the case. Joe Royer is going to have some passes over the middle that he's going to get that are going to be very impactful. Cyrus Allen coming over the middle is going to get some good passes there. I think Brendan Sorsby is going to be able to throw over the middle of the field, albeit it's going to be man coverage, and they're going to do some disguises and things like that, because that's what the Arizona defense does. But losing the the centerpiece, losing I'm trying to think of the keystone there in the middle of your defensive line is such a hard thing to replace. I mean, think about the games that the Bearcats missed Dante Corleone. Their defense was pretty porous in those games, and you did not see the sort of impact that we've begun to see from the defensive line here in the most recent games because they're whole and they've got Corleone and they're able to really push the envelope with their defensive linemen now. Arizona's not going to be able to do that. So they're going to be able to run up the middle. And then the other part of this too, and it's something that I think that I'll expound on here in a few minutes when I talk about Brendan Sorsby's ability to neutralize a key area of the Arizona defense. But in plays where he doesn't have a throw, the middle of the field will be something that he can utilize to run, and he loves to do that. We've seen multiple plays this year where you will get pressure to the sides, and the pocket will seem to very much close in from the flanks on Brendan Sorsby, but the middle of the field is open. He will take it, and he will run for a good 12 to 15 yards, and then we'll keep the drive going. So I really feel like there are a lot of opportunities here, not just for the run between the tackles play, but also for passes over the middle of the field and for Brendan Sorsby to create some magic where maybe the coverage is taking away the pass option for him. And it's all because of the missing nose tackle for Arizona. And again, he's a very key part of their defense. He's not like going crazy as far as leading their defense in statistics or anything like that, but he's the keystone in the middle that if you take him out of that defensive line, it's a lot weaker looking into it. But also, like, this helps out the Bearcats offensive line, the offensive line that is nominated for the award for best offensive line in the country. And I think that they've got a real shot to win this award. We talked yesterday with Russ Heltman about Brendan Sorsby being nominated for the Davey O'Brien Award for best quarterback in the country. And we're like, it's awesome that he's nominated. I do not believe that he beats out Julian Sand or Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. I think those two guys are probably vying for that title. But it's awesome to see that he's been nominated. The Bearcats offensive line has been nominated as a unit as best offensive line in the country, and they've got a real shot to win this because they are really good up front. I mean, thinking about Gavin Gerhardt and thinking about Joe Cotton, thinking about Tarantayo, like all these dudes are they're dudes. And I think that they're going to be able to push this Arizona defensive line back. They got beat. Not necessarily that they were giving up sacks left and right, but they were not able to impose their will against Utah like they had in the games past. 7-game win streak, a lot of it was due to multiple things, but the offensive line just being dominant was a huge part of that. They were not dominant against Utah, and it showed. So they're going to want to get back on track in this game, and I think that they will, because a big part of it is that missing nose tackle for Arizona. The Bearcats have always tried to be balanced under Scott Satterfield. Obviously, in years past, haven't been able to do that because they didn't have the balance of talent, but this year they do. They're very talented on the offensive line, very talented in the wide receiver core, very talented in running back, very talented at quarterback, and we're seeing it in the games that they are able to push the physicality. They can run every part of their offense, and they're going to be able to do that on Saturday. But mostly it's going to be because they can control that middle of the field. And when you control the middle, obviously you can branch out and control the rest of the field too. But Brendan Sorsby's ability to take care of the football will be another reason that the Bearcats win on Saturday. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Well, the Bearcats had a bye last week, so we're actually going to look to the Bearcats' opponents, the Wildcats, because Quincy Craig, the running back, delivered the knockout blow, the go-ahead touchdown that put the Wildcats up for good over Kansas 24-20, and he did it on a 24-yard run with 39 seconds left in the game. He's going to be a guy that the Bearcats need to watch out for because just like Quincy Craig delivered for the Wildcats, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday that you order. You can stack it all up in a season and you will save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Thank you for making Locked On Bearcats part of your day and your first listen. And want to thank you for helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. Really appreciate that. We're going to be with you all throughout the season, all throughout the offseason. We are talking Bearcats athletics every single day. We'll get back to basketball on Monday's episode, of course, as the Bearcats face Mount St. Mary's on Sunday afternoon. But we're all about football here today, talking about the big 3 reasons why the Bearcats will beat Arizona Saturday at noon, starting with, of course, their ability to control the middle of the field, but Brendan Sorsby's ability to neutralize the turnover game for Arizona's defense is going to be so huge. Arizona this season, their defense has 12 interceptions and 7 forced fumbles. They like to make sure that they're cutting drives short and really taking or giving their offense extra opportunities. Brendan Sorsby, on the other hand, has just 2 interceptions thrown all year long. Of course, had that key fumble against Utah as well, but he has done a fantastic job of limiting the turnover-worthy plays. He is still less than 2% on the season as far as turnover-worthy throws go, which still puts him in the top 5 of the country. And then you've also got just the overall efficiency that the offense is able to produce. This is something that Arizona, while they have a good defense, we've talked a lot this week about the fact that Arizona is able to play this aggressive man coverage that is going to give Brendan Sorsby fits. It's his kryptonite, for sure. So he's going to have to prove that he can work against that. But one thing that's going to work in his favor is Arizona's inability to defend the run. They're very bad at that. And the fact that they really don't like quarterbacks who have that ability to create their own runs, right? Like the off script plays that quarterbacks can do. Arizona's defense is not good at defending that. So what's probably going to happen a lot in this game is that he's going to drop back to throw. He's not going to see anybody open. He's not going to force anything to anybody, and he's going to take off and run. He's going to get 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11 yards easily and keep drives going. And so you're going to wear down this Arizona defense. Eventually he'll get the throw that he's looking for. But at the same time, Brendan Sorsby has learned you don't have to throw it, especially when you've got the legs that he has. He's such a talented runner. Not saying that like he's like a Michael Vick type of dude, but we know when Brendan Sorsby tucks in and goes, he's going to get some yards. I've been very happy with how Brendan Sorsby has attacked this season, game in and game out. I know that Utah was a struggle, but again, I kind of agree with the folks that are like the environment was key in that one. Super late night game, first time going to Utah, all the different things, you know, the national attention and all that stuff. They've had a bye week to reset. They're facing Arizona, who is a good team, but they're a couple of plays away from being right there with the Bearcats in the Big 12 standings. But I believe that Brendan Sorsby will limit the things that Arizona does well on defense to the point that the Bearcats are still going to get theirs in this game. And the game plan is going to be a big part of this. And I mentioned this a little bit, you know, in the first segment, talking about controlling the middle of the field, but just as a whole, whether it's up the middle or whether it's to the left or to the right, whatever it might be, Brendan Sorsby is going to be able to understand when he doesn't have a play and that he needs to create something with his legs. Because if you think about how Arizona has to defend him, their bread and butter is their aggressive man coverage. And the Bearcats wide receiver core is so deep. Hopefully Caleb Goody plays. I know that he's currently listed as questionable, but he would be a key part of this. If Caleb Goody's on the field, if you've got Jeff Coleman, Jeff Caldwell, if you've got Cyrus Allen all on the field with Joe Royer, it's going to be really hard to figure out who you got to key in on. And Brendan Sorsby is going to be able to exploit that. But say Arizona has them all covered. Brendan Sorsby can tuck and run, because if everybody's covered, that means there's probably not a spy on Brendan Sorsby. But if Arizona springs for the spy and makes sure that they have Sorsby's running lane at least watched, then there's going to be somebody open. There's going to be an opportunity for him to get a chunk play to Caleb Goody down the field or Caldwell down the field, something like that. Like, I still see that this Bearcats offense has so many weapons and so many options to go after an Arizona defense that we have lauded all week long. And we've told you that it's going to be tough for the Bearcats. They're not just going to be able to run all over the field like they did against Oklahoma State or just absolutely dominate every single play. But at the same time, I think they're going to be able to do enough to beat this Arizona defense. And it all starts with the efficiency that Brendan Sorsby brings. It was a big question last year, especially in the second half, where it kind of felt like Brendan Sorsby thought he had to do everything. He thought he had to play hero ball. He had to make the throw. He had to force it into coverage. He had to make the big play because the Bearcats were behind the sticks all the time. And it didn't necessarily feel like they had the weapons that they have now. I think that he knows he can trust his guys. He knows he's got the offensive line that he can trust as well. And he's worked multiple years with Scott Satterfield, and he's worked multiple years with his assistant coaches to the point that they all have this just understated confidence in one another that the game plan is just going to work. And if they got to tweak it, then they can tweak it. I think that is, and we talked about this in weeks past, that's a very understated factor for why the Bearcats have been so good this year. It's just the continuity of keeping your quarterback and your coaching staff together for as long as the Bearcats have. Albeit there's been a lot of criticism in the years past, but it's paid off now, where it's like we as sports fans don't like to be patient, and especially in the city of Cincinnati, where it's like, boy, oh boy, we're just waiting for the hammer to drop on this season. But I feel like that has been a huge factor in why the hammer has stayed up and why the Bearcat season has not come crashing down, because of that relationship between Brendan Sorsby and his coaching staff that has been cultivated for years. And so because of all of that, he has this ability to limit the bad plays now, because he trusts that if he just, if he throws it away or if he tucks it and he runs it for a couple of yards, you keep the drive going. You don't have to force this play, because Arizona is going to want that. Arizona is going to want you to try to play hero ball. They're going to want you to try to force a throw, and they're going to be ready to make a turnover when you do. And I think that Brendan Sorsby, after the reset and all this other stuff, he is going to be ready to win this game through his decision-making, not his playmaking necessarily, although that's going to be a huge factor, but the decision-making will be first and foremost, and he has gotten so much better at that. I've been most impressed with that this season, because you've seen those plays in 2024, and we've seen the opportunity for him to make those mistakes in 2025, and he hasn't. Like, pretty much every time. And I think as long as that continues, like we see that version of Brendan Sorsby show up on Saturday, ain't no chance that Arizona gets the upset here, because this has been such a fun season to watch him work. And that's why we talked about him a lot. And he's getting award recognition, and there's NFL scouts that are talking about him. And kind of like Russ Heltman said on yesterday's podcast, like, the quarterback class is so weak in this year's draft class. And I just saw something, I think The Athletic posted it, that Peyton Manning was talking about the quarterback class this year and said that he's not impressed by any of them. And, Peyton Manning knows quarterbacks, so take that pretty, as gospel. So he's got an opportunity here these last 3 games to really show that he could be a dude for somebody in the NFL. So I think he knows that, but he also knows everything going on with the team week to week. Brendan Sorsby seems like just a dude. And I think we're going to continue to see that play through as the Bearcats beat Arizona this week. But there's one other factor, and we don't talk about it enough. But there's also some statistics to really back this up, and it's all about Nippert Stadium. Looking at FanDuel's lines for this game at noon on Saturday between Cincinnati and Arizona, Cincinnati is favored by 6.5 points, and the over-under is set at 56.5. I have talked with a bunch of different people about this game all week long, and I started off feeling a little bit suspect about the point spread, but feeling strongly about the under. I have now gained a confidence that the Bearcats will cover and that they will hit the under because I really feel like this is going to be a game where Cincinnati puts a premium on time of possession, and they're going to be able to keep the ball away from that Arizona offense, and they're going to be able to score and push their will physically up and down the field with that offensive line that's due to win some kind of an award after this season. So I'm taking the Bearcats -6.5, and I'm taking the under on 56.5 total over on FanDuel. Plus, if you just place $5 for your first $5 wager on the Bearcats money line and they win, you get $300 in bonus bets. Those are odds you can't beat, and you can use those across the app. So download FanDuel today. I encourage you to keep the conversation going with me after the show is over. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. I'm also on TikTok at that username as well. And you can follow me on Instagram. You just flip that around. It's CarrJeff. You can follow the show on Twitter at LO_Bearcats. It's Locked On Bearcats, all one word on Instagram and on TikTok. Still got to get those going for the show. I haven't really touched those just yet. So if you follow them and you're like, there ain't nothing going on here, that's why. But definitely we'll get that going here soon. There's the third reason why I believe that the Bearcats are going to win on Saturday. First two, of course, we talked about the fact that they're going to be able to control the middle of the field, and Brendan Sorsby is going to be able to neutralize an Arizona defense that wants to force turnovers, at least neutralize the turnover aspect of the Arizona defense. And the third reason is Nippert Stadium. The home field advantage that the Bearcats have this season is unreal. And I don't think that people around the country understand this. I've mentioned this before, but quite frankly, we could talk about this just about every episode. Nippert Stadium is one of the best atmospheres in the country. I really hope that the BYU is a nip at night game. And I would like to put that out there. BYU needs to be like a 7 p.m. kickoff or 8 p.m. kickoff, which one it's got to be. But make it a nip at night game because it's just a special atmosphere there. But even during the day, the student section, the way that the stadium is set up, it's so loud. And Arizona's not ready for that. Most Big 12 schools haven't. When they show up to Nippert Stadium, I think that they're taken aback a little bit because they just don't know. And when you look at the statistics for the Bearcats, when it comes to their home road splits, it's very key on defense. Because their defense, while it's not a fantastic unit, it's also not a horrible unit. They do much better at home. They really limit the scoring. They limit the just overall effectiveness of the opposing team. And they actually do a good job on offense of turning the ball over much less at home. And so those are key factors when you really look at this. But Arizona on the road too, they're a pretty balanced team. Like, to their credit, one of the things that they do really well is that they're pretty balanced as far as how much pressure that they put on the quarterback. It's not to the level of Utah, and it's not really to the level of Kansas. I know Kansas is a much more like wants to put pressure on you type team, but they do it more so with their front four. Arizona is going to be similar to that. They don't blitz a lot like Utah does, but they try to do their damage with the defensive line, which goes back to the fact that they're missing their nose tackle. So that's going to take away part of their ability to put pressure on Brendan Sorsby. But to their credit, they do a better job of being balanced, whether home or away. The Bearcats, on the other hand, are almost not double, but they're like 3% higher on their sack rate when they're at home as opposed to on the road. It's almost 7% was the sack rate. I was looking at this. This is over on NCAA football.com or NCAA.com and, the football side of things. But their sack rate is almost 7% at home, where it's like 4.5% on the road. So there's something about the Nippert Stadium environment that feeds the Bearcats and really takes away the pressure that it puts on opposing offenses to really get things done. The loudness that the fans are able to generate. The 12th man at Nippert Stadium is so underrated. I think I saw that, and I don't know how they break down this statistic, but the home field advantage factor and I forget what website does this, but the home field advantage factor for Nippert Stadium, they're like 26th in the country. Quite frankly, I think they should be top 10. And I understand there's stadiums that are far bigger than Nippert Stadium, but it's not about the size. It's about how you use it. And the Bearcats use it well. The sound at Nippert Stadium is unbelievable, deafening at times. You know, if you've got like a smartwatch or something like that that alerts you to the sound level being a little bit too high in an area that you're at, and I forgot to put mine on this morning, but while I'm recording this, I don't have it on. But the sound level, my watch goes off all the time at Nippert Stadium because of the sound, especially on third down. We do such a great job of putting the pressure on the opposing team. And I definitely think that will continue these next 2 weeks. I think it's going to be a little bit more keyed up for BYU, but everybody understands the stakes here. Bearcats cannot lose. And the 12th man is going to do everything that they can to help them out in this game. Looking forward to it. Noon kickoff for the Bearcats in Arizona. It's going to be such a fun atmosphere. And I believe that it's going to be televised on Fox Sports 1 or something like that, which is good because like the ESPN game a couple of weeks ago was like, man, commercial breaks were crazy. But like this is going to be such a fun atmosphere. And I really think that Arizona ain't ready. And I think that the Bearcats are going to get to win. So looking forward to it. To see if the Bearcats can get win number 8 on the season. Keep on chugging toward Dallas. But that's going to do it for us here today on this edition of Locked On Bearcats. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats part of your day. I encourage you to make it part of your everyday routine. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app because we're free and available everywhere you get your podcasts. Also, make sure you hit the like button, drop down to the comments section. Helps out the algorithm so that more Bearcats fans can find the channel. And now make sure you check out Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll's got you covered for the most exciting conference in all of college sports, from the championship game to the rivalry games and everything in between. That's all covered. We also have a great squad show, usually releases on Thursday evenings. And I know it's back last evening. I wasn't on it this week, planning to be on it next week. But it's a lot of fun. All the Locked On Big 12 hosts get together and just talk smack. It's a fun time. So make sure you check that out as well. But as for today, that's going to be it for Locked On Bearcats. Thank you so much for making us part of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow after the Bearcats get their 8th win.